Chapter 7, Section 2 is about integer exponents. And first of all, reminder, an exponent, if you have, say, x to the 5th power, that means x times x times x times x times x. And let's say we have x to the y. This is your base, and this is your exponent. So the big number on the bottom is the base, and the little number up to the right is the exponent. 3 to the second means 3 times 3. This number, this exponent, tells you how many times you multiply something. We're going to specifically be looking at two things today, 0 and negative exponents. Anything to the 0 power is 1. And some of you are going to get confused and you're going to want to say 0. But anything to the 0 power is 1. It doesn't matter if it's a whole number. 10 to the 0 power is 1. If it's a fraction, anything to the 0 power is 1. And when you have negative exponents, if you have, say, x to the negative 2, that means you write it as 1 over x squared. So the negative in the exponent means you put it in the opposite. If it's on the top, you move it to the bottom. If it's on the bottom, you move it to the top. We could do this with numbers also. If you had, say, 3 to the negative 2, that is the same as 1 over 3 squared. And 3 to the second power is 9. And I'm going to ask that you write these as fractions. I don't want them written as decimals. I would like them written as fractions. So our first example here in our notes says 2 to the negative 3rd power. 2 to the negative 3rd is the same as 1 over 2 to the 3rd. 2 to the 3rd is 8. So that is the same as 1/8. Number 2 is 5 to the negative 2 power. That is the same as 1 over 5 to the second. 5 to the second is 25. So that is the same as 1 over 25. Number 3 is negative 3 to the negative 4th. That is 1 over negative 3 to the 4th power. Negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. If you're doing this on your calculator, make sure you put your parentheses around here, and that would be 1 over 81. Number 4 is negative 4 to the 0 power. Anything to the 0 power is 1. Number 5 is 5 to the 0 power. Anything to the 0 power is 1. Number 6 is 7 to the negative 2, which is 1 over 7 squared, which ends up being 1 over 49. Leave it as a fraction. Number 7, 6 to the negative 3rd, is the same as 1 over 6 to the 3rd. 6 to the 3rd power is 6 times 6 times 6. Not 100% sure my math here. I think that's 1 over 216. I don't have a calculator with me right now. Number 8 is tricky. Anything to the 0 power is 1. But we need to do 6 to the 0 power and then put the negative in front of it. 6 to the 0 power is 1. And then we put a negative in front of it. And let me make a number 9 here. Negative 6 to the 0 power. Now when you have the negative inside the parentheses, that would just be the positive 1. This one, we have to go to the 0 power and then do the negative. Couple of examples. The next situation we're going to see is having the negative in the denominator. And if the negative is in the bottom of the fraction, we're going to move it to the top. That would be k squared. And here we have x to the negative 6. So we would write that as x to the 6th. So if it's in the bottom of the fraction, we move it to the top. Hang on a second and let me try to wipe off this part of the overhead. A couple more examples on the bottom. Number 1, 5 over m to the negative 3. This negative exponent comes to the top. So that will be 5m to the 3rd. Number 2, this 2 to the negative 3rd, it's a negative exponent. So that will be 10 times 2 to the 3rd power. We moved it to the top as a positive exponent. 2 to the 3rd is 8. And so our final answer for this one is 80. Number 3, we have x to the 3rd over y to the negative 2nd, z. This negative exponent, it starts out in the bottom. That means it is going to move to the top. So we will have x to the 3rd, y to the 2nd over z. Number 4, the m to the negative 4th is a negative, and an n to the negative 1. Those are our only two with negative exponents. If it's on the top, it moves to the bottom. If it's on the bottom, it moves to the top. So that becomes 6. This m to the 4th is going to go in the bottom. Down here we have a 2. N will move to the top. And the p to the 6th stays on the bottom. And there's one more thing that we can do to reduce here. We have a 6 over 2. We can reduce these numbers, and we would have a 3n over m to the 4th, p to the 6th. Number 5, anything to the 0 power is 1, so w to the 0 is 1. And then both of these have negative exponents, so we're going to move the t to the 4th to the top, and we're going to move the r to the 7th to the bottom. Number 6, the 6 stays right there on the top. W to the 2nd, it's a negative on the top, so we're going to move it to the bottom. That x is to the negative 3rd, so that's going to move to the bottom. Anything to the 0 power is 1, and that y to the negative 4th, it's a negative, so it moves to the top. So the w, the x, and the y switch spots. Number 7, we have 3 negative exponents here, so those flip. The 6 and the y to the 4th stays the same. So the 6 stays there. X to the 3rd goes to the bottom. Y to the 4th stays in the top. These are both negative. So the m to the 6th moves to the top, and the n to the 1st moves to the top. And lastly, number 8, 5 over 10 I'm going to reduce. 5 over 10 reduces to 1/2. You can put the 1 on the top, you don't have to. And now the x to the negative 2nd moves to the bottom. Y to the negative 3rd moves to the bottom. A to the 5th stays on the bottom. And b to the negative 4th moves to the top as a b to the 4th. So the negative 2, the negative 3, and the negative 4 switch spots.